This is video number 1 for day 2 in Math 099, and we're talking about absolute value. What is absolute value? Well, basically what it does is it tells us how many or how much as opposed to which way. It's a quantity, and quantities are never negative unless you owe money. Now let's take a look at a number line. And what you can see on the number line is basically the relationship between these two numbers. So we're going to start out with this, where we're going to look at -7, which is here. And it is, we have to ask, how many steps is it to get from -7 to 0? Well, it's 7 steps. It's also 7 steps to get from +7 to 0. So that means that the absolute value of -7 is 7, and the absolute value of +7 is also 7. 18, -18, sorry, is 18 steps from 0, and +18 is 18 steps from 0. So if we say the absolute value of -18, what we're really saying is how many steps from -18 to 0 are there? And there are 18 steps. And absolute value of 18 is also 18. Very important. Steps is always positive, so the results of an absolute value equation are always positive. One thing that I really want you to remember, this is never true. Any number equals the absolute value of any number is a negative. So if I have this, the absolute value of -17 is -17, I have made a terrible, terrible mistake, and I'm wrong. It's always positive. And you've seen absolute values before, but let's talk about what the absolute value of a variable might be. So here we have the equation, the absolute value of x equals 4. And what this is telling you is that the stuff between the absolute value bars is 4 steps away from 0, from either direction. And that's why x has 2 values. So again, let's take a look at the number line, and we're going to find, trying to solve for x, so 4 is 4 steps away from 0, but -4 is also 4 steps away from 0. So that means that x can equal -4 or x can equal +4. Both of those will make this true. So what I'd like to do now is do a practice, you try, and what these problems are, these you try problems are on your prep packet. So if you don't have that in front of you, please pause me and go get it. Meanwhile, I'm assuming you have it right there, so we're going to get started. So basically, we know that it's 8 steps, so there's 8. And it's 8 steps to get to 0. So I know that y can equal +8, and it's also 8 steps from 0 from -8. So y can equal -8. And if I were going to mark that on my number line as a solution, I would put a solid dot at 8, and I would put a solid dot at -8. And over here in this box, I'm going to put my actual interval notation. And since this is an equality, an equation, it's a set thing, and we use the curly brackets for that. So here I have 2 possible answers in my solution set, -8 and +8. And again, I would suggest that you hit pause and finish writing that on your prep packet paper. So we've looked at a variable. What about the case where there's an absolute value expression? So here you're being told that 3x plus 2 equals 8. So you're being told, if you look down here on the number line, that from 8 to 0 is the equivalent of 3x plus 2. And that same thing is from negative 8. So that means, again, there's two solutions for this absolute value. You're working at it from both directions. So in this case, here, this would look like this. 3x plus 2 equals negative 8. And the partner equation would be 3x plus 2 equals positive 8. And I would go ahead and solve both of those algebraically to find my solution. So here I've solved algebraically, and I come up with, on this side, an answer x equals negative 10/3, and here x equals 2. Both of these results will make this true. So if I, and again, this is just my setup, this isn't the solution set for the equation on a number line. But I want you to think about that both of these results make this true. So here we have an absolute value expression. C minus 4 is the expression. We're looking for its absolute value. And I'm going to set up my partner equations. First, on this side, I have C minus 4 equals negative 3. And on this side, I have C minus 4 equals positive 3. I'm going to solve these algebraically. Add the opposite. I like to do both sides at once just to keep track of what I'm doing. So here I'll have C equals 1 and C equals 7. And I'm going to put these on my number line. So here's C equals 1 and C equals 7. And to do those as set notation, or interval notation, here I have 1, 7. And we can check this by saying, is it true that the absolute value of 1 minus 4 equals 3? So that's the absolute value of negative 3, and that's true. And here we'll test it again. Is it true that 7 minus 4 equals 3? Absolute value of 3 equals 3. So we've done it right, so that's correct. Again, if you need to pause to catch up, this is when to do it. Sometimes you will see an equation that has a constant that's outside of the absolute value. And if you look at this equation here, we have the absolute value of 9x plus 4 inside the absolute value. And then outside of it, we have this minus 7. We can't have this here because it doesn't make it work very well. So before you do anything, you have to zero out this constant. Here I have a negative 7, so I'll add the opposite, add 7 to both sides. I'm still balancing the equation. And I end up with this. The absolute value of 9x plus 4 equals 27. And here I did it backwards, but that's okay. Here I have partner equations, so I would solve those algebraically to get that to work. So again, you're just going to zero that out so that you have it looking always like that before you split them. So let's take a look. Here's a problem for you to work out. This is 2B on your packet. So here I have 1/4 n minus 3 within the absolute value brackets, and then plus 2 equals 5. And before I can tackle this, I have to take care of this constant. So I'm going to subtract or add the opposite. And my new one, my new absolute value equation will look like this. And from here I will solve. Here I'll have 1/4 n minus 3 equals negative 3. And here I have 1/4 n minus 3 equals positive 3. Solve it algebraically, Add the opposite. And I have 1/4 n equals 0, and I have 1/4 n equals 6. And multiply both sides by 4. I have n equals 0, and I have n equals 24. And again, it's an equation, so we have solid dots. You'll notice I've changed the scale on my number line, so each tick stands for 2. So here's 0, and here's 24. My solution set looks like this. 2 answers in the set. And you can go ahead and double check that on your own. If you need to pause, this is the time to do it. This is a slightly different case, and this goes back to what I was talking about, that you can never have a negative. So a lot of times you'll look at a problem like this and your first instinct is to just jump in and attack it and make your partner equations, but before you even do that, I want you to stop always and analyze. Do a little pre-thinking about your any math problem. But here, this is really important because this is a -5. And that negative and that equal sign tell me to stop. There is no solution to this equation. Because I could put any number I wanted into there. I could put a negative, I could put a positive, and that would always be a positive number, and it can't equal a negative. So this is basically an illegal move. If you were going to show me the answer to this, it would look like this. And that means null set. It's an empty set. So you wouldn't even bother with this because there's nothing to show. That's it. So again, remember, never, ever, ever, just stop. So just to recap, in a regular equation that we've been doing quite a while, there's a specific value of x that makes the statement true. Here I have x plus 4 equals 12. Well, there's only one answer that will make that work, and it's a solution set that looks like that. In an absolute value equation, there are 2 solutions that will make it true. So here I have x plus the absolute value of x plus 4 equals 12. Well, I solved it, and x can either equal -16 or -8. So either one will work, and my solution set will look like that. And that's the end of video number 1, and stay tuned.